All right. Can you hear us? Are we live, Mr. Burnside? Folks back there, are we live? All right. We're going to get started, everybody. Good evening. It is Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 at about 6:10. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for storage and viewing on the district's YouTube channel. Please take notice that adequate notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of School Estimate has been provided in the following manner. Written notice was sent from the office of the board secretary on November 17th via email to Maplewood Township and South Orange Village clerks and editors of the News Record, Star Ledger, Village Green, Tap Into Soma, and posted on the district website. May we have a roll call, Mr. Burnside?
Thank you. Mayor Dean Daffis.
Present.
Committee person Nancy Adams.
Here.
Committee person Jermaine Kripe.
Here.
Village President Sheena Collin.
Still not able to reach.
You have it. You had it.
Okay.
You had it.
I am here.
Trustee Jen Greenberg.
Here.
Trustee Karen Hilton.
I'm here.
Board President Caitlin Whitletter.
Here.
Board Member Nubia Duvall Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Manson call.
Yeah. So welcome, folks, those of you who have joined us in person and those of you who are following us online. Again, just to set a few things clear at the outset before we get into it this evening, this is a meeting of the Board of School Estimate. This is not a school board meeting. There will be a public speaks portion this evening after the presentation we will receive by administration and after the discussion of the Board of School Estimate. But the public speaks portion, just like our discussion, will be limited to the topic advertised. The topic we're discussing tonight, which is the long-range facilities plan, receiving an update from administration about the construction. All right, how are we doing? How are we spending? And what does that look like? Tonight's meeting is informational only. This is an informational session meeting. This body will not be taking any action. So also keep that in mind. I will be chairing this evening on the Maplewood side. Last time we met like this, Mayor Cullum chaired on the South Orange side. As those of you who have been following this for a very long time, we take turns, and tonight it is Maplewood's turn. We welcome our colleagues from the school board, and thank you for having us, and it's nice to be here with you. So the way this is going to go is we're going to receive a presentation by administration, and then we're going to have the opportunity to ask questions and engage in discussion. We also have with us, I understand, the construction manager, Epic, representatives from Epic, and we also have representatives from the architectural firm involved in our construction. So they will be available for questions as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Burnside for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daffis. Good evening again. To start this presentation, I'd like to give a brief overview of the process of how the Board of School Estimate gives us project approval and requesting funds from the Board of School Estimate as well. The first step is determine the scope of the project in concert with the board's architect. And tonight we have Spiesel Architects with us. The next step, the board will adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of the project to the New Jersey Department of Education for approval. Once that happens, the architect prepares the schematic plans and the requisite application to the Department of Education. Once the DOE approves the project, the board then shall adopt a resolution determining that it is necessary to sell bonds and to conduct a public hearing regarding the same. So that's kind of where we are now. We're one step before having a public hearing. The board secretary shall certify such resolution and provide the same to each member of the Board of School Estimate. Set a date for the public hearing, and notice of the same shall be provided to each member of the Board of School Estimate. We will publish the notice of the hearing in a local newspaper. The Board of School Estimate will conduct the public hearing, and the Board of School Estimate shall determine via resolution the amount of money necessary, and the secretary shall certify such amount to the board and to each of the municipalities. The board adopts a resolution containing the bond proposal, a request, the preparation of the supplemental debt statements. Before any of these steps outlined herein are taken, we need to confirm with our board's available borrowing capacity with the board's auditor. Our auditors are here right now, so we're confirming that as we speak. The board will adopt a bond form and sale resolution, and then we sell the bonds to finance the cost of the project. So I'm going to give a quick 2023 construction update. Over the next couple of slides, we'll go over the completed projects for each school. I'm not going to read through all of the details for each school, but please notice a couple of recurring projects across the schools, including, but not limited to, HVAC, upgraded electric service, new classrooms, and renovated classrooms. This is Seth Boyden. We have completed construction on the 6 new classrooms and 2 renovated classrooms, as well as many other projects. This is Tuscan, 4 new classrooms. This is Delia Bolden, 5 new classrooms, new playground. Next up is Clinton. This was a big one, 12 new classrooms. We did this one in 2 phases. South Mountain Elementary, this was another big one. This was 10 classrooms at the what's called the big school, and 4 new classrooms at the annex. We also did Underhill Field, new turf field, new press box, new visitors bleachers and home bleachers. And now we're currently under construction with Marshall, which is going to get 16 new classrooms. Montrose is currently scheduled to be under construction shortly. The contract has been awarded and approved, and here's the scope of that project. Montrose is not getting an additional classroom, an addition of classrooms built. It's mostly HVAC. Columbia High School is currently under construction, and right now they're renovating the 10 new science labs. And Maplewood Middle School has been awarded. The contract has been approved, and we just had our kickoff construction meeting on November 15th. And South Orange Middle School has not gone out to bid for the entire project. We are still able to award the upgrade and electric service though. This allows us to get ahead of the longest lead time in ordering the new switchgear and transformer. And now the current state of our construction bond funds. Right now we have approximately $4.5 million of unencumbered or unspent funds. As we are currently in the process of working with our auditors for our annual audit, we have an estimated cap reserve balance of $8.4 million. For outside assistance, the district has been in contact with the New Jersey Department of Education Commissioner Angelica Allen McMillan, Assemblywoman Mila Jacey, and our county superintendent, Mr. Joseph Zara. Ms. Jacey has sent a letter to the commissioner to help support us in acquiring additional funding for the remaining projects. We have not heard anything to date regarding these requests. So this is a snapshot of our current construction costs to date. This represents a moment in time. So you can see in the first column, it's titled Project Total. This column represents the original projected budget from our architect. You can see that the total of approximately $157 million. This is the original amount the Board of School Estimate approved back in 2019. The next two columns are the expended construction contract column and the expended soft cost column. When combined, they make up the third column title, which is the expended total column. The construction contract amounts represent contracts awarded and any change orders that were necessary. The soft cost amounts are non-construction expenses. Examples of this would be architect fees and construction management fees. You can see the far right column labeled over and under budget. That shows which specific construction project is over or under budget. This is where we see the bottom number of $4.5 million of unencumbered or unspent funds. The beginning of the projects at the top, we're looking at the Clinton Bolden and the Seth Boyden Tuscan projects. They came in under budget. Then the South Mountain Annex, and Underhill Field projects came in over budget. Even though the high school came in under budget, the scope was scaled back just so we could afford the project. The Marshall Montrose and Maplewood Middle School have come in over budget as well. I'm sorry, the dates, those are the date the projects were awarded. These are the change orders. The total is approximately $893,876. The overall dollar amount of change orders compared to the overall budget is exceptionally low at 0.0056%. Of course, we know that there's still more change orders to come, especially for the high school, but the overall amount is very good. 0.0056%. I took the amount, 893,876, and divided by the 157 million. This slide shows the inflation increase, which has had a direct impact on our construction bids coming in higher than the original projected budgets that were created in 2019. To put things in perspective, I've compiled a list of projects that were awarded and what their inflation rate was for that month. As I was stating before, the Clinton, Bolden, and Seth Boyden and Tuscan projects, they came in under budget. At that time, inflation was 3.8%. Then we get into the South Mountain and South Mountain Annex and the Underhill Field projects. South Mountain and South Mountain Annex were in November of 2021, and Underhill was in December of 2021. South Mountain came in at 4.9%, and then Underhill came in at 5.5% inflation the very next month. And then from there, we have the Marshall Montrose in 2023 and Maplewood Middle School in April of 2023, and those were 5.6 and 5.5 respectively. So Columbia High School was just awarded in May, and that came in at 5.3%. So 4 out of the grouped projects, if you will, came in at over 5.3%. So this is where we are today. This is the remaining scope of work. You can see we've added a 5% escalation cost for 2 years to help with the cost of inflation going forward. South Orange Middle School is approximately $19 million for the projects ranging from fire alarms, clocks, PA systems, HVAC, new doors, toilets, and a main office renovation. That does include the soft costs. Columbia High School has 2 projects that were removed from the original bid. These were removed as well as the classroom addition that was going to allow the bids to come in under budget. The guidance suite and the classroom alterations are approximately $1.4 million. The scope of Ritzer Field has changed from the original plans. This is necessary because of a number of factors, including needs and litigation. and that cost is $4.3 million. So I'm just going to give a reminder for the next slide that this is where we are with our capital reserve balance at $8.4 million. So this slide shows ROD grants, and they're an opportunity to have projects completed outside the original bond with aid from the state. The local share of the project costs is the responsibility of the district. This can be funded with either capital reserve funds or the approval of a referendum by the Board of School Estimate. We've not put that in the other slide. We carved this out separately. This covers 5 eligible projects. We've obtained preliminary eligible cost letters approved by the state. We still need to receive our final preliminary cost letters. The reason we've included this is because if we are to complete any of these projects, we could use some of our capital reserve. As you can see, these are all roofing projects. And even though the construction bond did include some roofing work, there was still more to do. So we decided to give you some estimated tax impact scenarios. The first one would be just the South Orange Middle School by itself. The total cost would be approximately $21 million, and the estimated annual tax impact for Maplewood would be $76 a year and $88 a year for South Orange. Scenario number 2 would be South Orange Middle School and Ritzer Field. The total cost of doing these 2 projects would be approximately $25.8 million, and the estimated annual tax impact for Maplewood would be $93 and $108 a year for South Orange. Scenario number 3 would be all the projects, and that would be approximately $27.4 million. The estimated annual tax impact for Maplewood would be $99 a year and $115 a year for South Orange. If you were wondering, the difference between scenarios 1 and 3, the estimated annual tax impact is a difference of $23 for Maplewood and $27 for South Orange. And that went much faster than I imagined it would. So we'd like to open the floor for questions, and we're going to have our architect and construction manager sit at the microphone in front, and we can just have a group discussion.
Great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Burnside.
Okay. I was going to kind of kick things off with questions that I received in advance, if that's all right.
Please.
Okay.
Please. I'd like to offer space for our construction manager to add any comments or remarks. Would you like to give us an overview of how we got here? I mean, it's been since, what, 2019? We have folks who have moved in recently. We have folks who've forgotten what's going on. This is the first time we're reconvening since approving the long-range facilities plan at $160 million. Would you like to sort of summarize that? You
Sure.
may not be prepared to do that, so which is fine as well.
Sure.
If I can add, I think it's important for those watching who may not be as familiar with public contracting projects like this, that if you give the overview of what your job is, what is it that you do? I appreciate how important it is into this, but it's, if you're doing a project at your home, you generally don't have a construction manager. So, right, so
Right.
it's expensive to have a construction manager, and I think it's worth every penny, but I think it's important that the public know what it is that your work is.
So I guess first we'll start maybe with introduction. So I'm Scott Downey. I'm a principal of the Spiesel Group, so we're the architect working on the project. Todd Waskowitz is also with Spiesel. So Todd is someone who specializes on the construction, managing the construction side, doing the estimating in our office. And
I'm Kathy Tartaglia with Epic Management, and then we're the construction manager. And I was going to say, maybe to start how this started, Scott could start, because this started with the referendum and whatever that they worked on, and then we came on board and began the bidding process for you all. And
so the process started with the district with an assessment of the district's needs. So each building was looked at, Now, that assessment identified far more in terms of potential needs than what was advanced, because then an exercise was undertaken to prioritize, things that maybe could be deferred, things that could be funded maybe in other ways. Mr. Burnside mentioned the ROD grants. There were rumors that that was coming. So some of the roofing work, for example, was not advanced initially because we anticipated that would qualify for those types of funds. So once that original scope was determined, obviously the design process and the approval process unfolds. And then the plan was developed as to how to implement those projects. So at the time, the district's adjustments to sending areas and so forth dictated that the additions at the elementary schools were a high priority. And as a result, those elementary school projects were pushed forward and done first. The high school and the middle schools were left until the later phases of the project. And the phases were determined that we didn't, and the district didn't want to have every school under construction at the same time. So trying to manage, the ongoing operations and undertake construction in a reasonable way was planned out and looked at. So those projects then were gradually bid, and as Mr. Burnside presented, the initial projects bid successfully. So the initial elementary school projects were under budget and on target. Along the way, we had this little thing called COVID, which began to arise. So Mr. Burnside talked about inflation. The numbers we're talking about tonight kind of have experienced a compounding from that inflation. So although we did include anticipated inflation that was consistent with what we would typically see in the market in estimates, those initial projects were bid during COVID, but then the impacts of COVID began to be felt. So, if you recall, districts everywhere kind of rushed coming out of COVID to improve their mechanical systems, right? We need to increase ventilation, we need to upgrade, we need to increase filtration so kids can come back and we can tackle those things. So that began to have a very quick impact on the construction market. Mechanical, electrical costs began to escalate very quickly and very fast. And that has continued. Now, couple that with the supply chain impacts, right? All that equipment uses chips and things. And even on our projects here, we at times were waiting substantially longer than we anticipated for transformers, electrical equipment, and so forth. So you had a huge escalation in demand, you had a drop in supply, and you had a market that obviously reflected that. And that's a big part of how that inflation has impacted us. So the fates kind of aligned, and that the projects, for various reasons that were put at the end of the cycle here, the middle schools, for example, are primarily mechanical and electrical improvement projects. So they also kind of bore the brunt of those cost impacts. And that's kind of a summation of what has brought us here tonight. If there's anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say, when we came on board, our job was to help bid, phase, meet with the town, meet with, the police and the fire, and phase everything, and work with the district and the teachers and mostly the principals and staff to get everything coordinated and try to keep the schools running smoothly, which I believe for the most part have gone very well. And like Scott said, when we started, the budgets came in and we keep watching it grow. We've tried to adjust things. We've tried to make alternates. The later projects were bid twice to see if we restructured the bids of South Mountain and the Annex to see if we could save some money. And that slowly helped a little bit, but not to the extent that we've watched this grow, and the inflation come along. But our primary role here is we're the overseer of the construction itself. We have people on site at every site every day overseeing the contractor's work. I would say this was a very successful project. We have worked together as a team. The administration has been phenomenal to work with, and the principals and staff have been great to work with. It's been a collaborative effort. We have 6 buildings completely finished and open and back in the hands of you and the towns. And we have the others underway, and it's a challenge. And it is inconvenient at times, we're not always the most popular, but when it's finished, you know, the schools, if no one's been in some of the schools that have been finished, you should go see them. They really came out really nice, very nice.
Yeah, and I think part of, as Mr. Burnside indicated, part of what you can look to illustrate the success of the projects is the very low change orders. So while the bids in some cases have been higher for the reasons we've talked about, the construction itself has gone well. And then you consider the age of some of the buildings that we've been doing work in, and there have been conditions that have been found that have had to be addressed, which is a big portion of those change orders. But overall, the projects have been very successful.
I think that's important. And you will remain available this evening. Thank you for being here for additional questions from our discussion. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Burnside, to read into the record any answers you may have for previously submitted questions. If you would read the question and then provide your answer, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yes. So one of the questions is, what is the administration's total recommendation and request to the Board of School Estimate? Can you remind us and the general public of the budget process and the requested total tax increases for the school district? So we're not coming with a recommendation tonight. That'll be for the next meeting. And I kind of went over the whole process. I guess what I want to make clear here is that this is outside of the tax levy. Yes, taxes go up, but it's not a permanent tax increase. Usually these bonds are for only 20 years. Can you explain in further detail the reasons for the cost or overruns at South Mountain, Marshall Montrose, and Maplewood Middle School? And I think we just covered a lot of that. A lot of it was demand, inflation, and cost of material due to demand. Does the revision and scope of Ritzer Field include a turf field? Yes, it does. It's going to be two girls' softball fields. And I believe you could play more of the sports on it than just softball, but that's the main intent. Given the recent change in administration regarding the interim superintendent, can you provide any assurances or explanations of the capacity of the district to complete the proposed capital improvements? And I think you guys can see that the plan is moving forward. We're moving right along, just as if Dr. Taylor was here. I don't think it's had any impact on our meetings, other than Dr. Gilbert's now at the meetings. And yes, he has been attending our construction meetings. And do you have anything else to add, Dr. Gilbert? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Good evening, everyone. Just to thank you. I think you covered it all, Eric, and I just want to put the public at ease that these projects are still moving. The name has just changed in terms of who the chief school administrator is. I do attend the construction meetings. Eric and his team keeps me up to breast on things that are going on. And so that shift and that change should not have any delays in the work that we are planning going forward.
Mr. Burnside, any other questions?
No, that was all I had. Sorry.
Thank you. I want to turn to our school board colleagues and ask them if they feel that they and their colleagues are receiving regular updates about the construction and generally well informed.
Yeah. Yes, I've tried to, I mean, we talk about a long-range facility plan every meeting. We get to see this team every month, and they've been really wonderful to work with. Two things, actually. One, to your point, Mayor Daffis, about reminding people while we're here tonight, I think it's important for us to read into record the district goal that necessitated this meeting, because we've known for a while that we're a little short. So I want to do that first, and then I want to speak to your other question about board feedback. So the goal that was approved in August stated, the superintendent of schools will continue to lead, just a bit closer, will continue to lead the district's effort toward the successful completion of our $160 million multi-year construction project. An important part of the effort is the unfortunate realization that inflation has had a devastating impact on pending funding for one of our middle school projects. While we understand that the Board of School Estimate is at the ready to hear our possible requests for additional funding, the board is tasking the superintendent and his team to conduct an exhaustive search of other possible funding opportunities to support our construction needs. To allow for timely bidding of the project, this process should be completed by December 1 and include monthly updates to both the community and the Board of School Estimate. So that was our goal. Obviously, we have a lot of other projects to fund in addition to the middle school. So before this meeting, I had asked our my fellow board members to provide feedback on how they felt about this situation and what we should be asking the Board of School Estimate. And I appreciate that. I did receive some feedback from members saying, we're concerned. The overall sentiment was, this is a lot of money, and we just came to you for money. And thank you for giving us the funds for transportation. But we also thought that it was important that we put all of the projects in front of you to look at, to understand where the deficits were, what's pending, and to provide us with your thoughts and feedback in partnership with you. My personal opinion is, I don't think we should be going into our capital reserve, and many other board members echoed that. We need that money for the ROD grants and then any other pop-ups that could arise over the year. And then I think for me personally, my biggest concern is that how else can we raise these funds? I think that there is more that can be done, by the district to continue to look and exhaust all measures. I do appreciate we had our municipal partnerships call. I think that was now a week ago, 2 weeks. I can't even keep track. But
yesterday.
I know. And I appreciated that. We talked about this a little bit. President Cullum, tried to come up with some additional ideas. Maybe we can bring this even higher to our representatives in Congress. But I think that in addition to meeting with you, there are other things that we could be trying to do because it will be an additional burden to taxpayers, and we're all very sensitive to that. In addition to the fact that these are important projects too.
Thank you. Madam President, any comments to add?
Just that when the referendum was originally developed, the amount of money for the outstanding projects of our buildings, like the critical needs, I think was over $300 million. So this first bond represents like the most critical needs, and it's really tough because I echo everything that Nubia said. And when you go into our schools, we had a presentation with some of the photos from our teachers about, water coming in when it rains and things like that. It's, these are infrastructure issues that if we don't fix, these buildings will continue to just deteriorate. So we're in a really tough bind, but I would like to see what other funding we could potentially exhaust from the district itself, because I think last year our budget was over $178 million, which is great. So where can we pull? Like, we spend a lot of money on consulting fees. Like, where are we spending more money than we need to? Because every dollar counts. And as Nubia said, thank you so much, because we couldn't have afforded transportation this year for our students. So that was a huge win. But now to be back here having the same conversation for a lot more money, we recognize that this isn't easy for you or for South Orange Maplewood taxpayers.
Thank you for that, Madam President. Okay, so we're going to turn over to questions from the board. I have a couple of questions at the outset myself, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure if the mic. Okay. So, Mr. Burnside, I want to turn your attention to slide 16, please. It says current state of construction bond funds. And I'm particularly interested in the first bullet point that says the following: approximately 4.5 million of unencumbered, unspent funds. How do you mean this? Because in my professional experience, unencumbered and unspent aren't synonymous. Unspent is one thing, but unencumbered means not obligated, and presumably the 4.5 million is obligated. It's part of the money that hasn't been spent yet for the construction. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct. So when we award a project, we know exactly how much that contract is for. We encumber the money.
Correct.
Yeah. So this is money left over, unspent, not encumbered.
Right. Encumbered but not spent, in my professional opinion. But I'm glad that you clarified for the record how you mean it.
I'm not laughing at you. It's one way, we look at it, I think we both see it the same way. We're just explaining it differently.
Right. We just want the public to understand
Yeah.
it, right? The
It's-
taxpayers who have to fund this. And that's really why I'm doing it. I'm not trying to have like a educational, philosophical back and forth with you here. And I appreciate that clarification for the public. So that 4.5 million, when we're looking at the later slides of the tax impact at the different scenarios, is that already on there? Is it included or not?
It is not included in there. And that's a great question. That leads into a great question. What about the 4.5 million? We, in our opinion, with our construction manager and architects, we believe that that money will probably be used for some of the other projects that may run over.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
That money,
The 4.5 million?
correct. We believe that that will be used for some of these other projects that are currently going on. We believe they may run over.
I see. Okay. My other question relates to, and this leads into an overall suggestion I have for when we return. Again, I think in interest of transparency and full informational capacity for the public and for the board, can you talk to us a little bit about the revised scope of Ritzer Field? You mentioned litigation, but it can't just be litigation if the scope has been revised. How do you mean that, and can you give us particulars?
Okay, it is an open litigation, so I really can't speak about it. Other than it is going to be 2 softball fields. There'll be a multi-athletic field, and it will be turf.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure there'll be more questions about that. I can just feel it.
I mean, do you
I'm
guys have
feeling you,
anything to
and
add
I'm
as
feeling
far
you,
as-
committee member Adams.
Well, if I may, so.
Of course.
Well, I can't speak to the reasons, which would be something that Mr. Burnside is saying he also can't speak to because of the active litigation. The change as a result was to move from Ritzer being a general, call it a rectangular field for football, soccer, et cetera, to a complex of several fields that take up a much bigger area of turf. So the additional softball fields were added, lighting was added, and the impact on the cost was to more than double what was in the original scope and estimate as a result.
Okay. Again, I think you'll get more questions about that throughout our session tonight. My other question relates to the change orders. It's great to see that the change orders aren't massive and proportionate to the overall cost, as you mentioned, Mr. Burnside. Is it possible to provide us and the public, when we meet again, any narratives, itemized narrative to the different change orders, so we have a better idea of why the numbers are the way they are, aside and apart from inflation, right? Is that possible?
Yeah, we can have a better detailed explanation for all these change orders, and we'll probably have more by the time we next meet.
Certainly, and I think you provided some narratives actually as you were doing your presentation that I think will better support some of the numbers here and better inform the board and the public, I believe. And then lastly, for now, for me, so I can open it up to others, I have a recommendation in how we could reframe this presentation for the board and for the public. If at all possible, can we do the following? Can we create a presentation? You can actually even just do a quick Excel spreadsheet at this point that shows the construction costs starting with budget, initial contract, spent, unspent, change orders after that, total together, and then the last column would be over under variance. And we can do that. I recommend doing that by facility. And I think that could like put this information together in a more accessible, if I may, format. Is that possible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to open it up to others here who I can sense are ready to speak and ask questions. On the Maplewood side, Nancy Adams, please.
Thank you. So obviously I'm going to ask about Ritzer, and we talk about, Madam President, you mentioned the most critical needs. And I see the most critical needs very much in the leaking ceilings and the asbestos abatement and, you know, the obvious critical needs. What I don't see as a critical need is an artificial turf. If you're ripping something up, like we had a big issue in Maplewood, obviously, everybody knows, DeHart Park, but what that was a poorly constructed natural turf field. Has any analysis been done on designing exactly what you're designing, regardless of litigation, for use by softball, by soccer, by football, and having it not be artificial turf, having it just be even allowing for chemicals to abate weeds and stuff, just like a regular field that is obviously more environmentally safe. It's safer for the athletes, or, women's world soccer wouldn't have fought for 10 years to get to play on regular turf. So I want to know about the difference between the cost of doing it as a regular field as opposed to an artificial turf field, which my understanding is a life of 10 years and costs about $10 million. I know it's a policy question, but I'd like to know whether or not, that was looked at. That's someplace that might save some money.
I just wanted to add, I think the original bond included the turf field, so that's not a decision that was made as of late. The original bond that was approved a few years ago had Ritzer being turfed. To your point, I don't think there's been an analysis recently of the cost differential between turf and grass. But I did just want to highlight, because we spent a lot of time in last year's board talking about the purpose of the field. And, this came from some advocacy from our softball parents and from our baseball parents too. There's a lot of field sharing, and we wanted to make sure that the softball team had dedicated space. Softball is a growing program at Columbia High School, and we just wanted to make sure that they could, scheduling of games was easier, practice was more efficient. And so this was important to seem the CHS community and to the board. And then the other sports that are taking place on Ritzer are also going to be those that can't physically take place at Underhill because of space issues. So, but now I'll kick it over to Mr. Burnside. I just wanted to talk about the importance of the softball program. Yeah.
No, I believe you said a lot there that is very accurate. I think when we were talking about it in committee, we were trying to maintain the spirit of the original decision of the original board back in 2019, which had it as a turf field. So to answer your question, we have not explored that option. We could certainly kick it around committee again.
I think you can actually get some actual cost pricing of the difference, because you just mentioned that every dollar counts, and we could be talking a substantial difference in cost,
Right.
not just a couple $100.
We have not done an estimate of grass versus turf, as Mr. Burnside indicated, but we could if the board desires that, yeah.
Well, I personally would desire that if we're looking to save money.
And I have a question, because we discussed this in committee as well last month. From what I understood, if we were to consider making the switch, we have to go back through the whole bond process. So can you talk about that a little bit so people can understand what that means?
So we wouldn't have to go through the bond process. We'd have to go through DOE approval again, which could delay everything. But with that being said, this is the last project to be done. So we might have time to go back to the DOE and get approval again if we were instructed to.
Yeah, it sounds like you might have time since it's going to be last on the, agenda, if you will, for building. So it sounds like something that might be helpful and might save us money.
Any other questions from the Maplewood side? Ms. Craig? Okay, I'll turn it over to our South Orange colleagues. Mayor Collum,
Please start with my colleagues first.
Trustee Hilton.
Thank you very much. I did put my questions in early, so those are my questions. So I just wanted to get like a little gold star for getting that in
Credit
early.
received.
But I want to add, I also feel very strongly about the turf issue, and I think it's very important to do that analysis now. Times have changed, and this board, I think, would be very interested in doing that. But taking that another step further, I would like to know, or I would like you guys to really look at any other value engineering that can be done for the existing projects. And you have now the wisdom and the experience that you've been through the last couple of years in our buildings. And is there anything that we could do differently at South Orange Middle and the other projects that are still outstanding that could be revised? Just I think it's worth a look.
I would like to say, I think collectively, we have done that. When we did the elementary schools. So for instance, I mean, their schools, the scope of the middle schools is basically HVAC and life safety upgrades. So there's no addition to cut off there. Like in the high school, we had options. There's, it's sort of almost an all or nothing in the middle schools because that's all it is. But in the elementary schools, when we did the air conditioning, we did Airedale units or VUVs, vertical unit ventilators. They're all ducted in the elementary schools. When we went to the middle schools, we went to a plenum right above to cut out the ductwork, to simplify the installation, to cut back the cost. So we have collectively looked at ways. I mean, there's not a lot. I mean, you're putting in a new unit or you're not. But we have collectively done things and made changes and plus it seemed like that was something that would be easier to implement in the middle and the high schools and not in the elementary because they're more sensitive in a lot of ways, the rooms and the way they're laid out. So I would like to say we have done that. And when you see the middle school and high school start and the units are big with the thing right on top instead of the ductwork, that is one of the many changes that saved a significant amount of money, but I mean, not enough to change where we sit now.
Thank you.
Hi there. I am following the sentiments of my colleague over here, and I would also like the turf field, sorry, to just be evaluated to see. I am also, my mind is spinning also to see if there's any other way to reduce the funds, but it really does sound like you have gone through over the years and have tried to do that. And it's very hard because a lot of these issues are issues that need to be done, safety reasons and so on. And the buildings are very old. I was once a student a long time ago in the grammar school. So yes, they do need, and I am glad that it's happening. It is a lot of money, and I know that it's something that we all want to make sure that we are looking in each crevice to see if there's any way that we can narrow down the funds. So thank you.
Thank you. President Collum? I got you.
All right, so I had told you, Mr. Burnside, that I didn't have questions, and they came up as a result of the facilitation of some of the discussion that was happening here. So on the unspent funds, 4.5 million. You guys are being super conservative. You know you are. Put a little smile on, because what I'm seeing is that we have 2 projects that haven't been put out to bid totaling about 14 million. And given your incredible track record of 0.0056% in change orders, which is like unheard of. I'm so jealous right now. I do believe, hopefully it's cautiously optimistic, that at least an apportionment of that unspent funds can be applied to whatever total the Board of School estimate comes up with. So do you think that's a fair assessment, Mr. Burnside?
So you believe we're understating the 4.5 million as unspent funds?
Yeah, because I looked at which projects have not been bid and their total amount, and assuming that you get authorization to proceed with those fully, 4.5 million in changes or in the response of the bid would be unprecedented compared to the other projects that you've brought in relatively close, and also with minimal, very minimal change orders once the contract has been authorized.
Okay, so these are actual numbers. What we have here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they're over or understated. It's a snapshot in time.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. So you had a total of, right, 4.5 million in unspent funds, right? And your response was that it's not being applied to what's being requested of the Board of School estimate because you believe that that money will cover either changes within other projects.
Right.
And you've had, my point being is that you've had very minimal change orders, 0.0056% on all the projects that you have done so far.
Yes.
And the only 2 remaining projects are Ritzer and South Orange Middle School. And you already had a preliminary budget for those.
And we're in the middle of construction with the high school, Marshall, and Montrose. And the big one, the high school, we've just started that. That's the big unknown.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
The high school, Marshall, Montrose, and Maplewood Middle School. And we have some allowance money in those schools, but they're very old. And so we're being conservative, but you know, the high school itself it's all interior renovation. So it's tricky work.
And
Yeah.
it would be primarily because it is correct in saying that only 2 projects haven't been put out to bid. The other ones are actively under construction, and what you're looking for is any change orders as a result of those other active projects.
Yeah, that would be I don't know, quickly adding it up, it's about $70 million of work that we have. We're just starting.
Okay.
We started Marshall in May. So we started Marshall in April or May this year.
Mm-hmm.
We just started the high school this summer. We abated the high school, and the active construction started in September at the high school. And we just had our kickoff meeting for the middle school on November 15th. So we are just at the beginning of about another $70 million worth of work.
Okay, that makes it a little bit more understandable. So when, right now at this midpoint, when you're looking at the 4.5 million that have been under and over budget, you're kind of using that as a baseline for what you're going to need through the completion of it?
Hopefully we don't spend it all, but it's so early in those projects and those buildings are so old.
Yeah.
It's hard to, it would be.
Well, that's just a darn on my part. I was hoping that we would at least be able to take half of that amount and apply it to this a little bit.
If I can, I do want to let everybody know that if there is money left over, it does go back to the taxpayers for relief. We don't keep the money and put it into the general fund.
Mhm.
It reduces the debt service.
Yes, that's good to know, but that's wishful thinking too, I think. So on the Ritzer issue, I don't know how to put this. You've always been very conservative in what you share publicly, but just in general litigation, you can't capitalize litigation costs and all that. So I'm assuming there has to have changes in actual work that moved Ritzer up in price over 100%. Is that accurate in order to?
That's accurate, yes. So in response to the litigation issues, the scope has changed. So the area being impacted is substantially larger. There are additional fields being built, additional fencing, lighting, and so forth. That is why the costs have escalated. So the scope has increased, yes.
So what we're seeing here is potentially a result of any settlement the district is working on with the litigants. Well, that's a real shame.
Where, I'm sorry. While you were thinking, I thought I'd. throw
No,
something in there.
go right ahead.
Where is the additional, you said you're making additional fields. Where are they? Are they just, are you expanding? Is it, because I can't picture where you would have room for that.
So they're in the same location. The softball fields are partially overlaid over the main rectangular field that's there.
Right.
Overall, the area being impacted is larger, but it's not larger by all the additional fields because there are overlaps in the way it was
Do you know how much
redesigned.
larger it is we're talking about, area?
I'm going to say it's roughly almost twice the area, maybe not quite. Say 65% more area. I don't have the actual numbers with me, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but we could provide them to you.
All the more reason to look at it.
Honestly, from my perspective, you might want to, I'm listening to everybody, but I am so pro turf field. I know, Nancy, this is where we can love each other, but vehemently disagree. I am dying to see Ritzer turfed for our students. It is so long overdue. We've been going around in circles forever. So while I think it's good due diligence just to see what it would look like, I would be absolutely heartbroken not to have that field turfed. So I want to be clear about my position on that.
Yeah.
I know, Nancy, I'll do it to myself.
No, well, I mean, and the cost estimates are a huge part of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a huge part of that. And regardless of whether or not you want people playing on plastic or you care about the environmental impacts, that's not the issue. Right now, we're talking about money, and it's significantly more expensive, in my guess, to do AstroTurf, especially if you're doubling the size. So let's just look at it, and then we can debate the other part later, maybe.
Sure. I'm sorry.
One thing that I would suggest is, in addition to just looking at analysis of turf versus grass or whatever, is also looking at long-term maintenance. I actually had the pleasure of taking a tour of that area with some neighbors in that neighborhood. And because I'm not an expert on turf, and I don't think I'll ever will be, but I did care about what the community that lives around that part of by the school wanted their opinions on it. And one of the things we discussed was that just in general, that field has not always had the best upkeep. There are a lot of water issues. South Orange has a lot of water issues. I don't know how it is Maplewood, but we just have so many elevation issues. I'm in Upper Wyoming, so I deal with them every day. But I think I'm open to further analyzing the situation. But I also think that we need to be really smart about this and realize that it's not a one and done. If it were to switch, it's not a one and done. Like, there's long-term maintenance that is also involved. And I think the district would need to work with Spiegel and Epic to understand that as well and add that to the cost analysis, because that is one of our major issues, is that we have all these fields in town, but they need to be maintained. And what does that look like?
Well, and just to add to that, the lifespan of an artificial turf field is about 10 years. So we talk about, maintenance, and it also does need maintenance too. It's sold as like no maintenance or like siding on your house, but it's not actually true. So both maintenance for both options and the cost of installation and the length of how long it would live.
please.
I think it's important that you guys get a visual, because last year we did see some photos and just some drawings of what Ritzer would look like under this proposal. So as follow-up to this meeting, Mr. Burnside, if we could send everybody some photos and then some examples of other school districts that you guys have done this work for, because it looks really good. And I think the kids are going to be really excited about it. So I would love for you guys to see it, because when I saw it, I'm like, we're going to be proud of this. It's awesome.
Yeah,
So-
I just want us to be careful not to go off topic here. I think we have a consensus that for, at least for due diligence purposes, we are talking about public funds, we should do the analysis, right? And then the rest of it is policy and advocacy, and that's not what we're here for tonight. And none of us are experts, although some of us know a little bit more about these things than others. None of us sitting in these seats up here this evening are engineers with factual backing and certifications to say one thing or the other about turf fields. So I want to be clear, again, we don't want to misguide, misinform, and that's why we're here, right? We're here to inform and be as transparent as we can be and ask the tough questions, which we are doing. I'm going to turn it back over to President Collum. I don't believe you were done.
Just a couple more, but not too many. How much money do you typically keep in your capital reserve balance? President Whitletter had shared that you don't want to touch that amount, and I totally understand that. We're the same way over here with our fund balance. We protect it like a baby. How much do you currently have, and how much ideally would you like to get to?
Okay, so right now our unaudited capital reserve balance is about 8.4 million. I just confirmed this is probably the highest it's ever been. I don't see us contributing any more money into it right now for many reasons. Well, health insurance, but.
Yeah. We
but,
feel your pain.
But yes, this is the healthiest it's been. And
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And I fully appreciate any hesitation to want to touch something once you've built it up to a place where it should be. Separate from the capital reserves, do you also put away just ongoing maintenance reserves for every budget, so that once all these beautiful projects, and some that already are online, is that you have a sinking fund, something that always is focusing on just the maintenance of the buildings?
We do have some, and I remember I used $1 million of it last year to balance the budget. So we have been using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sad that you had to balance the budget with it, but I understand the position that you're in. Okay, just a couple more things, and then I'll do my grand finale. So, Mr. Burnside, you are an incredible business administrator, but I've got to tell you, you got to learn to use some more pictures. Looking at all this, I don't think the community, and for those of us who have not visited all the schools, understand how beautiful the construction is, how absolutely incredible, the experience for our students has been from their predecessors in these schools. So I appreciate a good bullet point like everybody else, but maybe as a part of this plea, not just to the Board of School Estimate, but to the community at large, is to show the success that has occurred over the past 2 years in a more visual way, because we all love pictures.
So we actually started to do that. However, the presentation, it became very large very quickly. And there's just something about a boiler that it's not totally attractive. And we got a lot of boilers. But yes, I can certainly put that together next time.
Okay, and then my grand finale is honestly, I spent so much time. For anybody who says like, oh, the district isn't forthcoming or it's not being transparent, on the long-range facilities plan, wow, you share a lot of information. I can't even quantify the amount of time going through everything that Epic provided. you folks are fabulous. I love seeing your weekly updates. I love, well, the architects are always great too. You always get the short end of the stick, I know. The weekly updates are very good. I think the chart showing the inflation is actually underestimating between the labor shortages and what we've actually seen on the construction side of materials is, again, very conservative in offering the explanation to the community as to why you're coming back to the Board of School Estimate. As I have shared with my colleagues on the Board of Education, is that here in South Orange, our big project is our Baird Community Center. We have just surpassed 70 change orders on that building. It is late. We're very transparent about it. We did conservative budgeting so that our bond amount has not changed. We haven't had to go back and say whoopsie because we built in so much contingency money. But from your change orders, where your bids are coming in, you have some exceptional talent doing the estimates here and overseeing these projects to bring them in on time. And so I am absolutely floored, very impressed by how the district has handled the long-range facilities plan. So I know you're not used to people just fawning over the district and saying congratulations. And I'm normally the one who's spitfiring questions. So.
Well, thank you. We've got a great business office. We've got a good team here. One person who does not get enough credit is Mr. Tom Gilio.
And who might that be?
He's our Director of Facilities and Grounds. He's not here today, but
Well, give him a fist
she's my
bump.
right hand, he's my left hand.
Okay. Yes, please thank him. I'm looking forward to supporting the work moving forward. I know that we are not doing anything tonight. I remind everybody that, there was nothing sexy in a lot of this stuff. I wish it could be a lot more energetic for our community, but I'm not going to be on a Board of School Estimate that kicks the can again and leaves our school district in a place that 30 years from now is looking at another $300 million bond ordinance. So to the greatest extent possible, I want us to complete every item that we set out to complete. Ritzer, we'll see where that comes out. But I will remind everyone, that was the one nice thing we were trying to do for our students. And that's why it is so important to me on that. But we will see. We will see when we get a little due diligence on that. But that to me, when we approved it as a Board of School Estimate, and that was an add-on, it was one that we didn't have to do. At that time, we felt very strongly, the members who were here, is that was a very nice thing to be able to do for our students that they were going to be excited about, and that, it doesn't have a monetary value to be able to play outside and, not have to have the resting of a field that other fields need. So thank you to the Board of Education, and please pass along our congratulations to your colleagues. I know the FFT committee has been working on this relentlessly, and this was a great presentation, and thank you for all the information found on the district website. For anybody who wants and needs information, you can read it for the next 2 weeks.
Are there any other questions from the Maplewood or South Orange side? I want to echo what President Collins said. I want to thank administration for all the information provided. I think it's comprehensive. I think it's very transparent. And thank you. And thank you, Mr. Burnside, and to your entire team. I also think EPIC, 2 thumbs up. I mean, seriously, all things considered with inflation and all the challenges and supply chain issues that our architect mentioned, to have change orders at this low percentage is really incredible. So good for you, and thank you for your continued oversight and studious management of this massive construction undertaking of our very old buildings, our schools. And to the board. The board doesn't get a lot of kudos, especially as of late. And I really want to congratulate you all and all of your colleagues. And please also relay my, salute to all of you for staying on top of this. I agree, we have to move this forward. We can't stop now. But we also ask you to come back to us, reconfiguring this information, providing some narratives, further clarity, and doing everything that you can do to bring the delta down, because we're also building 2 libraries. state-of-the-art libraries that are investments for generations to come. And we also have a reval that's happening in both South Orange and Maplewood. So every dollar does count. We do not want to discount that. I think that's really, really important messaging. Okay, great. So at this point, do you have anything else, Mr. Burnside, you or your colleagues?
Just President Coleman and I were talking about the revals, and we will have that built into the next tax impact analysis.
Great, thank you. Anything else about this topic?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to get to hear from the public. We're going to start with folks who are here in person and then move over to those who are joining us virtually. And Mr. Burnside, you have the pleasure of administering Public Speaks. I will say again, I just want to remind folks here with us in person and those who are joining us virtually, Public Speaks this evening is limited to the long-range facilities plan. All right, it's limited to the information that was presented tonight. Please ask anything you want about that, but the other issues that are hot topics right now and concerns of folks in the community, school board related issues are not appropriate tonight. All right, so let's limit this to the long-range facilities plan, and we welcome Public Speaks. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Burnside. Thank you.
Please note that Public Speaks is not a time for dialogue with the Board of School Estimate. It is an opportunity for you to share a comment with the Board of School Estimate. In addition, by law, administrators and Board of School Estimate members are not permitted to publicly discuss issues requiring confidentiality. While we may not respond to comments, all input shared with the Board of School Estimate is taken very seriously and will inform future deliberations and work by the Board of School Estimate. Each individual will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please do your best to stay within the time afforded to you. We do have one in person, Jane Conrad.
Hello, everybody. I just want to start by saying that I'm sending to all of you a presentation at your BOE or TC email address called The Importance of Green Space, and it's going to be more eloquent than I'm going to be able to be tonight. Anyway, yes, I came here to urge you to reconsider artificial turf and consider removing it from the budget. And I'm glad to hear some discussion, of that. Let's check out grass, because even though it's not the largest cost, it's getting there. It's the most environmentally destructive and actually irreversible thing that you're considering. We're supposed to be preparing kids for the world they will face as climate change intensifies. How can we endorse a project that would dig up and throw away forever all of Ritzer's cooling grass and its carbon sequestering soil that took thousands of years to form? And by the way, Ritzer was farmland. It's never been built upon. How rare in Essex County. And you have to remove it all with turf. It's not rolling out, a plastic rug on top of soil. It's irreversible. And you want to do that and replace it with 1 million pounds of plastic that wears out in 10 years. So, if you haven't noticed, teenagers are great at calling out hypocrisy. And since we'd be putting all the heat to the added flooding risk, which is really something to consider, considering where Ritzer is, the methane, the forever chemicals, because there is PFAS in the grass of turf, and the microplastics of artificial turf, we'd be putting it right in their school environment, and kids are going to notice. And instead, let's focus on what students really need in their learning environment. And, what the pandemic and a lot of solid research have showed us is that students need actual green space, not green plastic, on their school grounds. And that in particular, schools with many trees reduce student stress, improve concentration, increase empathy and generosity, and improve academic achievement, especially in mathematics, across all demographic and socioeconomic groups. And central to the vision of what Columbia High School should be at the time it was built, and there was a co-designer of the New York Botanic Garden that designed our school grounds, were a lot more trees and shady outdoor gathering spaces suitable for outdoor classes and performances, among other things.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
You will be submitting your statement to us by email as well, so we'll have the full
Yes.
statement. Thank you.
Yes.
And sorry, Jane, if you want, we now have on the sign-up form that you can put your information, your email, if you'd like a response from either the district or the board. We now have that on the form. It was an idea that Dr. Gilbert brought to the board, which
How do
we're
I do
excited
that?
about. So it's right on the form in the back.
Well, I put
Oh, sorry, it's right on the table. So if, yes.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Okay. And we have one virtual public speaks.
I couldn't get the verification code.
Arun Vadlamani.
Hey, you guys can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Arun Vadlamani, South Orange. Let me put up a disclaimer first. I'm a member of the SOM SD Board of Education. I do not speak on behalf of the Board of Education, only the board president can. I analyze and comment only on publicly available data. I'm here to support my fellow BOE and FFT committee members and the district administration in their ask for additional funding to complete the long-range facilities plan. We have successfully completed construction at many of our elementary schools and need money for South Orange Middle School and Columbia High School. I believe that the additional $27.5 million will put us over the finish line and repay the construction and maintenance debt that we have accumulated over the past few decades. I also believe that we should finish all the projects and not cherry pick on line items, as we do not want to favor any one school over another. As you can see, there is a clear divide between projects bid out in 2021 and 2023. All the projects in 2023 were over budget. This increase is obviously because of inflation and COVID. Also importantly, the change orders are only about 0.5% of the total spend. That is a tiny percentage and impressive for a project this complex. The money will be raised as a bond offering, and we will repay the principal and interest over the next 20 years. This increase does not directly add to the tax levy. I understand that this amount will be added to the debt load the municipalities are carrying, including the borrowing for the new libraries and the Baird Center. However, this is our way of paying forward and giving our children a safe school to study in. Thank you.
Mr. Burnside, do we have any more public speaks?
No, we do not.
Okay. I would move that we adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? All who agree, say aye. Thank you for joining us, and good evening, folks.